have to record that last year on TV. I have to record that again one time. But we'll start up in a minute. But you mentioned what minute you were on before. Yeah. The you mentioned now you took a little break for the summer vacation and stuff. But just on today's daf, today's the last day of Kohelet, I think, and the first day of Esther, right? Uh, So just Kohelet for the fun of it. You notice all the connection between Kohelet and Sefer Breshit. The first line of the book gives it away. Hevel Havalim, Amar Kohelet Kol Hevel. Hevel is a key character when it comes to the question of Schar Onesh, right? Isn't Hevel the classic example of someone who's punished, who has a terrible life for no reason, right? Like you couldn't find a better example of somebody who seems to do nothing wrong, did Ataf for sure did things that are right, and gets killed, and there's no explanation for it. So using the name Hevel, it's unclear why Chumash is using that. But if I want to start a book that deals with tzaddik v'ralo and things like that, don't surprise if you have Hevel, coming up as a name. And if the last line of the book is about Yirat Elokim, remember? Sof Davar Kol Nishma V'Talim Yirav Mishpatav Shmor. That takes you right to Sefer Breshit about remember in Yirat V'Talim Makom. And you can't miss all the parallels between Avram Avinu, Tam v'Yashar, and and the setting, Uts there's Eretz Uts and Booz and things like that. There's so many. The setting is so Eliphaz. The setting is so Sefer Breshit set up that the book has to be a commentary on it's dealing with a question which comes up in every religion, but it's taking the setting of Sefer Breshit and using that setting to deal with that topic.
Iyov or Kohelet?
I'm sorry. I start with I mixed two things together. I
Both.
mixed Iyov and Kohelet. Yeah, Kohelet for sure is
Right. The
taking
Hevel is
yeah,
Kohelet, and the setting
and
here, Rav
also Iyov. Yeah,
Meidan
yeah,
spoke about that, and he
yeah,
really made a good case. And
yeah.
that's
So,
why I'm still thinking about it, because it made
yeah,
such a,
yeah. That doesn't mean
a
it
mark.
happened. It doesn't mean that it happened in the time of Avram Avinu. It means the author
But
of Kohelet, the author of Kohelet and Iyov, is using Sefer Breshit as a springboard to discuss his ideas. Now, in Second Temple literature, there's a lot of works that use Sefer Breshit as a springboard for ideas, like Sefer Yovlim, Savat, and the ones that aren't canonized. Sefer Yofilim and what do you call it, Tzavat Hashvatim and Sefer Chanoch and things like that. So there's definitely something going on in early mid Second Temple where there's what's called Sifrei Chochmah. There's wisdom literature which is using Sefer Bris as a springboard. Why? There's a good reason for that. Maybe that's a different topic. We're going to start today. Megillat Esther. I see Ami Dubi is on. Cool. Okay. He's my student from Gush from way back. Okay. Hi, Ami, wherever you are. Now, so I'm going to
We're in
start.
Boston.
Yeah.
Good to
Where
see
are
you.
you guys?
We're in Boston.
In Boston, near Kodesh. Okay.
Yeah, Sharon for the Josh and Sharon.
Okay. Very good. Good seeing you guys. Already. So I'll do a quick introduction to Esther. Again, it's still early. We'll probably still be more serious next week about Second Temple things. But just what's Esther hiding? I'll explain what I mean. It's sort of a one of these few titles that can mean a lot of things. Not Esther the person, Esther the book. Got it? When you hear a title, what's Esther hiding? It sounds like Esther the person, Esther. Is she hiding something? But what I'm getting, what's Megillat Esther hiding? Now, what in the name of Megillat Esther indicates we're hiding something?
Samach Taf Resh.
Yeah, exactly. Seta. Now, the rabbis asked the question in the Gemara, remember? Esther minator minayin. Right? It says, Anochi Esther Esther Panai. You've heard of Hester Panim, etc. Hester Panim doesn't mean that God's not listening, not watching, but God's not answering prayer usually. But we can deal with that later on. What I want to talk about is, what I want to begin today is, what's it hiding from a chronological point of view? Now, if I take the books of Tanakh that you've had up until now, what's called First Temple literature, okay? If I want to build a timeline, if I want to take chronology and build a timeline, can I do that with Chumash or not? Okay, so I can pretty much take Sefer Bereshit.
Yes, of
I can take
course.
Sefer Bereshit and build a timeline from creation, or at least from Adam Arishon up
So-
until Avram Avinu. Remember, Avram was born in 1948.
But we have the ages of Yaakov when he went down to Mitzrayim and the Rashi there, and we have the 400
again,
years.
so, which means you can figure up until Avram Avinu you have. From Avram Avinu till we leave Egypt isn't so simple. Yeah, we have a maximum because we have the years of Levi and the years of Amram and Kat and Moshe and Moshe, etc. You know, but we don't have continuous chronology. But from Yitzhak Mitzrayim, we have continuous chronology. Agreed? In Chumash, there's continuous chronology from Yitzhak Mitzrayim until the first temple was built, because the first temple was built in year 40 to Yitzhak Mitzrayim. And there's no dates in the book of Yeshua. There's no continuous chronology in Yeshua, Shoftim, Shmuel. I have some dates, but I have an anchor in the book of Menachem that tells me when Shlomo built the temple, it was year 480 from the time of the Exodus, 80 and 400. And then from Shlomo until the first temple was destroyed, I have continuous chronology because I can add up all the years of the kings. Got that? So if I want to build a timeline from Yitzhak Mitzrayim, I can do it easily through the end of the first temple period. Correct? That's what's important. Yeah. And I can pretty much build one up until Avram Avinu. I have to deal with Avram Avinu until Yitzhak Mitzrayim. I've a bit of a range. And again, we'll see how Chazal deal with it. Now, if I take only Tanakh, can I build a timeline with Second Temple literature? The 5 books of Esther, Daniel, Haggai, Zechariah, etc. Okay? None of those books give me a continuous chronology. Agreed? Now, Sefer Melachim tells me how many years every king was and who the next king was and what year they were. Oh, I'm sorry. I dropped my camera. I just dropped my camera. Zechariah doesn't have. He has dates. He doesn't have a continuous chronology.
Not continuous. Okay.
It's not. That's what I'm saying. I can't build a timeline. And I just messed up my camera. Give me a second. The camera fell. I set it up wrong. I'll fix it in 1 second. I think we're good. Here we go. Okay. That's better. That's my key point. Now, the question is, why don't we have a continuous chronology? Was that intentional, or is that just by chance? That's what I want to discuss a little bit. If I take all the books of Second Temple, all the prophetic books, I can't build a timeline. I don't have enough information. I can do that for the first temple period. I can't do it for the second temple period. Got that? So I want to explain what we do have and how it affects Megillat Esther. So let's. I want to keep it. It sounds complicated. I want to keep it as simple as possible. Okay. I want to get what we have some anchors. From what you remember, who builds the second temple?
Ezra, Nehemiah. Who built it?
No.
Not Ezra and Nehemiah?
A lot of people say that.
Okay,
There's no source for that. Ezra doesn't
Benji?
build anything other than a lot of halachot, etc. Like he builds basically he builds up modern day Judaism.
Zerubbabel. Benji says Zerubbabel.
Yeah. But Nehemiah redoes the walls of the city. Doesn't mention the temple. But when the temple is running, when Ezra comes, Nehemiah comes, the temple is running. It's just a bit dilapidated, and there's a lot of intermarriage, etc. Right? Zerubbabel is the one who builds the second temple, and you know that from your Hanukkah song. Remember, Case Babel, Zerubbabel, the Case Shibim Nashati. Zerubbabel, and we'll see Psukim. Zerubbabel is the one who builds the second temple, who gets it started. He's a political leader who does it. I don't know if he did actual, he did the. I don't know if he did the stonework, but he did the. He was at the groundbreaking ceremony. We'll see, together with his colleague Haggai. Who gave us permission to build the second temple?
Koresh.
Yeah. Who gave us permission to build the first temple? God, pretty much. But we did it. We were sovereign. Second Temple period begins under foreign rule. And therefore, when I'm under foreign rule, the years go by the foreign king. Instead of Menachem, the years go by the Jewish king, because we have a Jewish king, we're sovereign. I can't count to the years of a Jewish king in the Second Temple period, and therefore all the works of the Second Temple period all have dates to the Persian king. Make sense? Okay, now, so what we need to do is real simple. Let's follow the dates of the Persian kings and build a timeline and try to figure out when Megillat Esther happens. Now, if I take the first line of Megillat Esther, which I don't have to share because we know it by heart, Leibi me Achashverosh, hu Achashverosh hamolech mehodu ad Kush. Got it? We know the name of the king. We know how big his empire is. Got it? And we know he's Persian. Remember? Sorry, Parasu Madai. He's Melech of Parasu Madai. Now, he's not the first Persian king, because we know who the first Persian king is. Who's the first Persian king? Who's the Persian king who defeated the Babylonians? I'm just saying with Tanakh.
Then she says Koresh.
It's Koresh, right? That's the first line of the book of Ezra. Okay? Koresh is the first Persian king who's going to give the Jews permission to go back and rebuild the temple. We don't build it under Koresh, but he gives permission to go back and build it. And he's the one who defeats the Babylonians. He's the one. The 70 years of Babylonian rule end with the first year of Koresh. We'll get that line in the book in a minute. So I have a date of the first year of Koresh, and then I have we'll see what happens in the when Schari is the leader. We'll see that's going to be under the reign of Dariavesh. So again, who are the Persian kings that are mentioned in Tanakh? We've heard of Koresh, who has to be the first king. We've heard of Dariavesh, and that's when the second temple was built, when the background on it. We hear about Achashverosh. We don't know where he fits in. We know he knows after Koresh. We don't know where he is next. There's no continuous chronology there. And when there's a king also named Artaxasta, we have later on when Ezra and Nehemiah come. Okay, so I'm going to go through the books of Navi in chronological order and see where they fit in. Okay, nice and simple. So I'm going to start with the book of Ezra because that's where the main sources are. So let's take a look at the book. I'll share my screen, and we'll just open up right to. I don't need my inbox. I need a Tanakh numbers. Okay, I want to open up. Not Google Earth. We don't want Exodus. I'll open it up here. It's easier to find it. I'll move you guys to the top, and we'll go right to the book of Ezra. Okay. Real simple. Everyone have it? Bishnat achat leKoresh melech Paras lichot varshem b'piri Yirmiyahu. The first year of Koresh, just like Yirmiyahu said now, God inspires Koresh to give us the right to build the temple. Now, I'm going to stop this here for a minute. It says here, the first year of Koresh, when the word of God to Yirmiyahu was finished. Now, what is the Navi talking about here? What was Yirmiyahu talking about? What did Yirmiyahu say was going to happen?
Yirmiyahu said they should go back to Israel after 70 years.
After 7 years of what?
Of Galut in Bavel.
So some people say after 7 years of exile. What's another possibility? It could be 7 years of destruction. Got it? But it's neither. Yirmiyahu didn't say there'll be 70 years of exile. He didn't say there'll be 70 years of destruction. He said there'll be 7 years of Babylonian rule over the Middle East. That's chapter 25 in Yirmiyahu. And this is key for all calculations. Yirmiyahu's prophecy is in chapter 25 in Yirmiyahu, for the next 70 years, Bavel is running the Middle East. And that nevuah was given in the 4th year of Yehoiakim. I'll just share my screen real fast because it's an important line. It's the only line in the Bible that has a double date. You'll see why it has a double date. I'll just open up another screen. No, open up another one. Here. I'll do a simple Tanakh. Here we are. No, we want Tanakh. We want Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu chapter 25. So we want it here for a second. Yirmiyahu 25. Look at the first line of chapter 25. Classic. We'll make it smaller. Okay. The word of Hashem to Yirmiyahu, Al Kol Midah B'Shana HaRevi'it, the 4th year of Yehoiakim, okay, which is the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel. Now, why is that date important? Because after he throws the book at them for everything doing wrong, what's he tell them? Vayta kol haaretz hazot l'chorba l'shema l'avdo gamelech melech Babel shivim shana, verse 11. For the next 70 years, Babel is going to be running the whole Middle East. And after 70 years, okay, a Babylonian rule, God will punish the Babylonians and get rid of them. Okay? Now, then he says later on, in chapter 27, anyone who accepts the yoke of Melech Babel, it goes right in verse 13, 14, here. Here. The Tzidkiel, Melech Yudai said the following, put yourself under the yoke of Melech Babel, the temple is not destroyed yet, and stay alive. Why should you die if you rebelled against Babel? Yirmiyahu is saying, put up a white flag to the Babylonians, don't rebel against them, accept their sovereignty, and you can stay in your land. Yirmiyahu says was trying to prevent the temple from being destroyed. He wasn't saying the temple would be destroyed for 7 years. He didn't say it would be in exile for 7 years. He said for the next 7 years, the Babylonians are running the show. And you have to accept them. They don't listen, they rebel. And 18 years after the 4th year of Yehoiakim, that was Yehoiakim's king for 11 years altogether, another 7 years. And Tzidkiel's king for 11 years. They rebelled twice against the Babylonians. Each time the Babylonians win. And we go into 2 waves of exile in year 11 of Yehoiakim and 11 years later in year 11 of Tzidkiel. Now, so Koresh's declaration isn't 7 years after exile, it's 7 years after the 4th year of Yehoiakim. Keep that in mind. Now, let's go back now to a regular Tanakh. We'll go back to the book of Ezra. Where are we? Okay. Actually, before we do the Ezra,
what's the math? It's 50 years after exile?
52 altogether. Come back. We'll do the math right here. The math all starts right here. So they come back in the 1st year of Koresh. In chapter 4, they start building in chapter 1 and 2. The enemies of Yehuda and Binyamin, remember there's a lot of local population around who aren't happy about the Jews coming there. They hear that Bnei Gola are building a house for God. They come to Zerubbabel and the leaders and tell them, they say, we want to build with you. Zerubbabel says, no way, it's only a Jewish project. And we have what I call the first intifada. And the local population, the non-Jewish population, they're weakening the hands of Yehuda and steering them from building. Listen carefully. They were hiring lobbyists, from the time of Koresh to Daryavesh, there's a building freeze. Got it? Now, it didn't say how many years take place in between. But we know there's a building freeze from Koresh to Daryavesh. Got that? We know Koresh is the first Persian king. When we return, there's a building freeze until the 18th year, till the reign of Daryavesh. Okay? And then we mention Achashverosh in passing. Oh, by the way, during the reign of Achashverosh, in the beginning of his reign, they wrote something bad about the Jews. Now, is Achashverosh after Daryavesh? In between? It's totally unclear. Got it? And then we talked about this king Artaxasta. We'll deal with that later on. But I'm just showing you, right here I have Koresh, a Persian king, Daryavesh, a Persian king, and I know Koresh is before Daryavesh, and I know there's a king named Achashverosh. Unclear whether he's before or after Daryavesh, even though if I keep him in order, it seems to be that he's after. But you see there's something very unclear here. Now, they start building in the year of Daryavesh, and we'll see in a minute in year 2. And in chapter 6, there's all these letters going back and forth. And finally, in verse 14, I'll just do the English, right? or here up to the Aramaic. And the elders of Yehuda build, thanks to the help of the Nevot of Haggai and Zechariah, they build the temple, and with the authority given by Koresh and Dayavesh and Tachshasta, the kings of Paras, and they finished building the house in the third day of the month of Adar, in year 6 of Daryavesh. Got that? So the temple is built. We'll see in a minute. They start building in year 2, and in year 6 of Daryavesh, the temple is built. Now, listen carefully what happens. Bnei Israel, the Kohanim and Levim, make a Chanukah Tabayit in Adar. And then, since the temple was finished in Adar, they make a big Passover the next month, on the 14th day of the first month, because they became and they, what do you call it? They make a big celebration, and they made Chag HaMatzot for 7 days in Simcha, and everything's great. Now, that's chapter 6 of the book of Ezra. Stop here for a minute. What should happen next? The temple is finally built. We return. What is God expecting the people to do?
Run back to Israel.
Everyone should go immediately.
Yeah, but why shouldn't they? Is there any reason why why the people in exile wouldn't go back to Israel? Up until now, and maybe Yirmiyahu 7 years aren't over yet. Remember, Yirmiyahu didn't say you will come back. Yirmiyahu says for 7 years you can come back. After 7 years over, then you can come back. But why shouldn't we come back? What are we waiting for? We have the right to come back. We have a temple now, and things are going good. Now, keep that in mind. After year 6 of Daryavesh, got that? The temple is built. We don't know anything that happens in Tanakh until the next event, which is chapter 7 in the book of Ezra. And watch how tricky it is. This is chapter 6 in Ezra. Chapter 6 has again Koresh and Daryavesh, and mentions Achashverosh in passing. And in chapter 7, which will continue for the rest of the book of Ezra and through Nehemiah, right? We're under the kingdom of Artaxerxes, Melech Paras. And if he has a different name, most likely he's a different king. It talks about Ezra's Aliyah. We have his whole Yichus. Okay. Verse 6, Hu Ezra Alami Bavel. He's a Sofer Mahir. Okay. And he makes an Aliyah group with him from Kohanim and Levim and Meshorim, etc. They come to Yerushalayim in year 7 of Artaxerxes. Got that? They come to Yerushalayim and make a big deal, etc. Now, quickly, Ezra makes Aliyah in year 7, does a big reform. We'll see what happens. He comes, he finds intermarriage. Ezra basically changes everything around and gets the people back in the right direction. Okay? That's all happening in year 7 of Artaxerxes. The next date in Tanakh is going to be year 20 of Artaxerxes, when Nehemiah makes Aliyah, and he comes up and built up the walls. And most of Nehemiah is in year 20 of Artaxerxes. And then in the last chapter, he comes back in year 32. Okay, he sees what happened, and where does it say here? I take my word for it. And maybe it's in chapter 12, but he comes back in year 32, and maybe 2 years later he comes back again. What I'm getting at is that after the temple is built in year 6 of Daryavesh, the next event is going to be year 7 of Artaxerxes when Ezra makes Aliyah, and then year 32 of Artaxerxes when Nehemiah comes back again. Now, what's missing? We have no idea what's happening in between, and we don't know where to put Achashverosh again. But what should have happened after the temple is built in year 6 of Daryavesh? I should expect massive Aliyah. Okay, now, just one quick other source real fast. I'll share my screen. Who are the Nevi'im who come back with them? We don't mention any Nevi under the reign of Koresh, even though it seems to be what we call Deuter Isaiah, but I don't want to get into that topic now. But it seems like from Isaiah chapter 40 through 50 or so, is a Navi. It's written in the book of Isaiah, the second half, but it seems to be a later Navi at the time period of Koresh, because he mentions Koresh by name. I'll leave that topic alone for now. Just in the book of Haggai and Zechariah. Haggai, let's go with Zechariah. They break ground on the temple in year 2 of Daryavesh, in the 8th month in year 2 of Daryavesh, Zechariah has his first vision. And in his vision, he prays. He says as follows: a malach comes and sees him and says, how long he's praying to God, how long you're not going to have mercy on Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that you've been angry at them for 70 years. So basically, we know that in year 2 of Daryavesh, it's been 70 years, at least approximately, since the temple was destroyed. And that's how you get that 18-year gap between. Zechariah is not making a prophecy. He's stating a fact. It's been 70 years. In year 2 of Daryavesh, it's been 7 years since the temple was destroyed in the 11th year of Tzidkiel. And that's the 7 years of Churban that everybody talks about. That's not a prophecy of Jeremiah. That's a statement of fact by Zechariah. Now, so that's all the dates we have. How do the rabbis put it all together? Let me stop this screen and show you the problem. I'll share my different screen now. I'll share a source.
How do we know Zechariah is not talking about the 70 years of Yirmiyahu?
He says it's 7 years since the temple has been destroyed.
Oh, okay.
Now, here we are. Okay, look at this page. I'll show it to you later on. Here's a summary. There's 2 gaps in the book of Ezra. That's what we want to talk about. Let me move this guy to the side. Okay, what are the 2 gaps? Okay, we have year 1 of Koresh. That's the first line of Ezra. Okay, there's a gap between Koresh and Daryavesh that we read about in chapter 4. Remember? Where they stopped the building freeze. We don't know who the king is. There's a king in between, we don't know who it is. Year 2 of Daryavesh, they break ground. Year 6, they finish building. Then there's a gap between chapter 6 and chapter 7 of Ezra, which is between year 6 of Daryavesh and year 7 of Artaxerxes. And there's a gap. Understand? Now, we don't know what happened in the gap. We know what should have happened in the gap. They should have made Aliyah. Now, if I go to an outside source, and there's no shortage of them, if I look in an encyclopedia and look for a list of Persian kings in every history book, there's a king named Cyrus. We have the Cyrus cylinder. Forget the years for now. There's a king named Koresh. There's a king named Cambyses. There's a king named Darius, a king named Xerxes, and Artaxerxes. And those are their dates. Now, if I take this outside list and match it up with Tanakh, does it match or not? Who is Cyrus? Cyrus is Koresh, right? No doubt about it. That's as easy as could be. Okay. Then there's a building freeze from Koresh till Daryavesh, which we can calculate is about 18 years, which works out perfect between Koresh and Daryavesh. Got it? And therefore, who's the king in between? Cambyses. Now, who's the king after Daryavesh? A king named Xerxes, which fits nicely to Achashverosh. Drop the aleph and you have Chashashrash, Xerxes. Okay. And then there's the next thing, it's called Artaxerxes or Artaxerxes, which fits perfectly with Artaxerxes. Now, if I match up this outside history, Ezra and Nehemiah come in 460 in reign of Artaxerxes. Daryavesh is Darius when they build the temple, and therefore, what's happening between Darius and Artaxerxes? The temple is built. Got it in year 6 of Darius. The next event is year 7 when Ezra makes Aliyah. It's about 2 generations later. Who is the king in between in Persia? Achashverosh. Based on that, based on outside history and Pshuto Shomikra of Tanakh, when is Megillat Esther happening? Between Daryavesh and Ezra. Make sense? No. That's all we need for today's share. Got it? Notice, I have a book written about during the reign of Achashverosh, who's a great, powerful Persian king, of a story taking place about 20, 30 years after the temple was rebuilt. Got that? Now, in that book of Megillat Esther, I know the time period now, if I match up the sources. From a prophetic point of view, what should be happening in Jewish history during the reign of Achashverosh, even before, a little beforehand? Where should the Jewish people be?
In Israel.
They should go back to Israel. And what should they be working on? and putting their efforts into building up Yerushalayim in the temple. And instead, where do we find them?
Partying with Achashverosh.
Yeah. They're at Achashverosh's party, right? Shushan is their new center. Got it? They're scattered over Meyash Esrim V'Sheva Medina. And what's not mentioned at all?
The Beis Hamikdash.
I mean, it's alluded to the Beit HaMikdash about the Churban, remember? Who is Mordechai? Asher Oglam Yerushalayim, remember? It's been 4 generations since the temple was destroyed. Remember? We go, as Mordechai is the great-grandson of, Mordechai's great-grandfather, Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimi ben Kish, he was exiled from Jerusalem, which makes years work out perfectly. And that's where we go back 4 generations. In other words, that's the question, that's my introduction, what I want to get across. When I study Megillat Esther, am I talking about a book that is totally unconnected to the rest of Tanakh history, just the Jews in exile, whenever it might have been, in trouble, and God comes and helps them? Or are we talking about a time period where, from a prophetic point of view, God would be terribly upset about what? About all these efforts that God made to bring his people back from exile, right? Getting Koresh to allow them to build, getting Dariavish to allow them to build, finally getting the temple off the ground. And instead of all the Jews returning from exile, like they should be, instead I find them scattered and Jerusalem. And in the meantime, we know when Ezra comes, like 10, 15 years after the Megillah, what's he find? Jerusalem's dilapidated, tons of intermarriage. Basically, nothing happened. Got it? Now, if you were God, would you be upset? If you were running history and made all these efforts to bring the Jewish people back to their land, and they don't reciprocate, they don't answer, and they stay, you know what it might be like? I'll make up a story. Let's say there's a great king who has a trophy wife, okay? And his whole trophy, he marries this trophy wife, so wow, he's got to make himself look great. So he stands up, and with his election, right? He's got a beautiful wife standing next to him with a beautiful dress. Picks maybe some model or something, and he has a trophy wife. Got it? Now, and the whole goal of this trophy wife is to show off how great he is, the king. And let's say there's this big gathering. He calls his wife to show off how beautiful she is and how great he is. And let's say his wife doesn't want to come to the party. Would the king be pretty angry? Right? You ever hear a story about that? The question, does that echo the story of God calling upon his people? Remember? If I follow the Nevi'im, Am Yisrael is like compared to Har Sinai is like a marriage. Or like follow Shir Shirim if you were doing. That's our relationship with God, husband-wife relationship kind of idea. And is the question, is that story alluding to something major going on? Because what are the ramifications when the king's wife doesn't listen to him? What do you want from everybody else? Remember? You have to do something about it. And the king might want to just dump her already. Got it? Now, and therefore, that's the question, does Am Yisrael deserve to be wiped out because they haven't answered God's calls? Right? But does God save them at the last minute thanks to, and what do we do with that? And that's going to be the question, why is it that Achashverosh's palace is described like Jerusalem? I'm sure all the podcasts probably talked about it. I'm sure Rameydan talked about it, and Alex Israel now talks about it. Brings up one of those possibilities. I'm just trying to show you that for some reason, the Second Temple prophets, the way they're canonized, don't give us the ability to build a timeline. But when you use outside history, it's clear that the story of Megillat Esther is happening after the temple is built. After the temple is built and the Jewish people don't return. And that's the question: Are there allusions to this in the Megillah? So I'll just give you just one last source sheet here. Where are we?
But then isn't the salvation counterfactual? I mean, you would think with that story that God wouldn't save the Jews.
But we have this covenant that's eternal. Read what's God say? No matter how bad, Ki yadin Hashem amo ve'al David necham, ki mar efes azu ve'efes azu. Remember Shirat Hazinu?
I understand, but God could have wiped out the Jews in Persia who didn't come back and not broken the covenant and continued with the Jews who did go back.
So that's Shir Hezinu, where God says, you deserve to be wiped out, but I'll save you anyhow. Begins with Anochi Esther Esther Panay Bikem. B'yamahu. Al Kol Ra'ah. Where Chazal say Esther Minator Minayin. Again, so what I brought the quotes from Ezra here, and from Yirmiyahu we did, and from Chagai and Zechariah. Okay, Chagai is when they tell the people they break ground on Hanukkah year too. We'll leave Zechariah alone for here, but basically, when I look at Megillat Esther, okay, there's international ramifications when the queen's not obeying her husband. What's going on? Okay, now there's this issue in Shoshana Bira, but this I need a pasuk in Zechariah to show you how important it is. But his name is Marduk. No one in Beit Rishon is called Marduk. Marduk is a Babylonian god. Now, if you know the Cyrus declaration, Marduk is the one who allows Koresh to defeat the Babylonians because he's sick of his own people. But by chance, all of a sudden, there's a Jew named Mordechai. It's a Persian name. It's the name of a Persian god. And his name is but he exiled from Jerusalem, and he's working for the king in Persia. Okay. And the question, who's the king? I thought, remember, why are we hiding? Megillah is not really hiding what happened. He's hiding God, isn't it? Now, when you hide something, the question why we hide, God clearly is not mentioned in Megillah. Even though he should be mentioned. But the Megillah is hiding God. That's clear. That's what Esther is hiding. Esther is hiding the time period and hiding God's name. God's behind the events, but if you don't look for him, you won't find him. Now, in this line is sort of the giveaway. What's Hamatel Chashverosh? Yeshno Amachad. There's a nation scattered among all the nations, all your kingdom, and their laws are different than every other nation, but they don't listen to the laws of the king, and the king shouldn't leave them alone, shouldn't allow them to stay. Is that Haman? That's Haman talking about the Jews. Is that alluding to God talking about his own people? Got it? Were we deserving? Again, we're saved at the last minute. And we'll say later on, to appreciate the whole Megillah, we need to study the book of Zechariah, which is a whole, maybe we'll do that next week. Because this is the background to understand Zechariah, and how Zechariah is going to explain basically the rest of Megillat Esther, why his name is Mordechai, and why he's an Ish Yehudi. And again, that's a whole, we need to do the next year, we'll have to do a shir on Chagai and Zechariah to understand how this explains Esther. What I want to simply explain is, if Esther is hiding something, and that's the big question, is the author of Megillat Esther assuming that the reader, his audience, is aware of what's going on in Jewish history, is aware that God should be upset for the Jews not coming back, is aware that we should have been wiped out, but God saved us anyhow, and are we going to reciprocate? And am I going to do everything, basically, if I understand it that way, to turn Shushan Purim into Yerushalayim Purim? Please understand what Chazal did. Am I gonna now? I'm not gonna spill the beans. I'm gonna leave enough. What do you call it? Breadcrumbs for the reader to find them on their own, if they're not drunk. If you got my point. What are we gonna hide? If I think it's called Satire, which, by the way, if you know Greek satire, begins around the same time period as Megillat Esther. The question is the author of Megillat Esther using satire as a message to get this message across? Is he hiding God's name and hiding the time period, right? But he's hiding it so the author will find it. Got it? Sometimes you hide something because you don't want somebody to find it. Sometimes you hide something to make the search, is called obfuscation, when you hide it on purpose for someone to find it. But when you find it, it makes it like, if Natan and Navi wants to give Musar to King David, he doesn't say what you did was bad. He makes up a story for David. Oh my gosh, that's me. Remember with the story with Natan and Navi and the guy with that little lamb, he's the rich guy steals from. But no, he tells a story where the reader has to figure out on his own. But it's much more powerful Musar that way. And that's the question when we read Megillat Esther. Was it written as a critique of the Jews in exile for not returning, saying you deserve to be destroyed, but God saved you anyhow, but now do something about it, which Ezra actually does the next generation, or like a decade later? Or is it just by chance all these things are happening? Again, that brings up the question, why is God's name missing? and how we define God. Now, what I like to say is the media is the message. If the question is, how do you see the hand of God in history when it's hidden? If you don't look for it, you won't find it. But when you're living in a time period when there's no more nevuah pretty much, and you're looking, does God talk to you through historical events? If you don't look for God, you won't find him. That's a message in religion in general. If you look for God, you won't find him. But the question is the Megillah writing the events in a way that purposely is hiding God in the Megillah because he wants the reader to find God. And he's hiding the time period on purpose because he wants the reader to figure out the time period and get the message in a satirical way. Or is everything just happening by chance? So to prove what I'm doing, we have to study Chagai and Zechariah probably next week. And we'll put them together because Chagai and Zechariah are coming up soon. I think within a week or two you'll be there.
Historically, did the Jews of Persia make Aliyah after this period?
Ezra makes Aliyah about 10 years later.
But from Bavel, right?
From Bavel, yeah. But from Persia, but Bavel, Persians took over the Babylonians. And when he comes, Jerusalem's in shambles, and there's barely not much is Jewish there. The question is that's why I'm saying the Second Temple period gets off to a really bad start. The whole reason the First Temple, we have to do this next week. We'll see this. I need this background to understand Chagai and Zechariah. God is really upset with his people at the end of the First Temple period. He's hoping there'll be recovery. If you follow Yecheskel, boy, there's great hopes for Beit Sheni. And Zechariah has great hopes. I mean, and Yirmiyahu has great hopes. And so do Chagai and Zechariah. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. And God's upset. The question is, what does Am Yisrael do about it? What does Nevi'im do about it? What do Chachamim do about it? And we're right at the edge of when Nevuah is over and Chokhmah begins. I want to use to explain why Nevuah ends here. Why Nevuah failed and why we go from Nevuah to Chokhmah. But we need that also. We need to do this. I need to give a whole class on Zechariah to appreciate it. I'll try to do that next week. I'll finish up Megillah and do Zechariah that week. Put them together that way. Okay, that's what I wanted to cover today. We'll stop here, and then next week we'll pick up.
What did you want to say?
Things.
Okay, so you said that Esther's supposed to be satire, but if most readers don't realize it's a satire, so we're missing something very important.
Yeah. I mean, one way to get around is just if you're drunk, you won't catch the message for sure, or don't study Tanakh. Tell us we're machmer on both. Right? We don't study the other books of Tanakh, so we don't pay attention to the time period, and we get drunk in case you do understand the message. But we bring Jerusalem back into the story every way we can, don't we? In Halacha with Shushan Purim,
Yes.
And we have to talk about why Mishlach Manot Israel. We'll put it all together. We just need another week or two to put the pieces together. And then we have to see why, how Chazal dealt with it. That's a whole different story. Okay. So we'll stop here and we'll pick up and continue next week.
It seems like they missed the satire also.
The satire doesn't mean the story didn't happen. It means that it's the characters are changed to indict the guilty. In other words, the names are giveaways. You follow Marduk being Mordechai and Esther from Ishtar. There's too much. There's too many coincidences going on for things to be by chance. And it reads like a fairy tale anyhow. It's like
Wild story.
Yeah. Doesn't mean the story didn't happen. It means, but the way it's told carries a message.
Yeah. Ups and downs. Yeah.
But I need more time to prove it. Okay, so we'll stop here for this week and we'll pick up next week. If you have time, read Chagai in the first 8 chapters of Zechariah.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Okay.